All right, guys, and we're back. I think the last video we went over some of the basics of using the shell. In this video, I'd like to give you the basics of actually working with files in the shell. So here we are back in our shell session. Shell session. Well, that's hard to say 3 times fast. And I just deleted all the files in this directory. So let's go over some of the basic shell tools you'll use to play with files. So as you saw in the last video, we used touch to create files. So let's go ahead and create 2 example files quickly. And as you can see here on the right-hand side of my screen, you see these files are actually showing up. Let's go ahead and create a directory. All right, and so to go over those 2 commands we use, touch is the command to go ahead and create a empty file. It's essentially an empty text file, so we can go ahead and add some text to these files so we can differentiate between them. For that, I'm going to use my favorite shell text editor. It's called Vim. So we'll use Vim on test 1. And in a later video, I'll actually go over the basics of using this editor. Vim is a modified version of VI, and VI is one of the default editors that most distributions of Linux come with. Anyways, let's add some text to this file. All right, and I'll save that. And we'll do the same with our second test file. Okay. Now you can see those files are both 23 bytes over here on the right-hand side on their size. Okay. So let's talk about how we can move files and rename files. There's a command called mv. I'll just show you. Here, well, it won't do anything without any arguments, but the tool called mv, it's used for moving files or renaming files. So I'll give you an example of how we can use it to move a file. So let's move test1 into test directory 1. So the syntax for that would be mv, and you give it the file name, test1. And then I'm tab completing what I'm typing here by pushing the tab key. So for example, if I type test D and do tab, it's gonna tab complete test directory 1. And so in order to move a file into a directory, when you type the directory name, you always wanna put a slash at the end. And you see our file has now been moved into the test directory. We can verify here. You see there's our file. Let me move this over a little bit. Yeah, there is our file. Let's go back up a directory. And so like I was saying, if you use mv and you don't use a slash at the end of a directory name, mv will rename a file. So here's an example of that. For example, let's name test2, test3. And as you can see here now, it's test3. And go back over here. And here, let's create another directory called, or actually, here's an example of excluding the slash on the directory name when trying to move a file. So say we want to move test3 into test directory, directory 1, and we exclude the slash. Oh, well, surprisingly, that worked. Sometimes that's not always the case, but it's worth mentioning that if you want to specify between a directory with the move command, that you add a slash at the end. So here, let's practice moving those files out back to the current directory. So we can do that, mv test directory 1/test test1, and we'll do // for the current working directory. And so as you can see over here, we move the test1 up. Okay, and now let's work on copying a file. The copy under Linux and Unix is almost the same as copying a file in Windows, except for it won't rename the file copy of a file. You're responsible for naming the file yourself. So let's, if we look at the content of the test1 file that we created, it says this is our test file, and I just used a command called cat, and it just simply displays whatever text is in any type of text file quickly. So let's use the command cp, and this is for copy, and let's copy test1 into a file called test2. So we'll copy test1 to test2. You see now we have our test2 over here. Now if we are to do a cat of test2, you'll see it has the same content as test1. It's a total copy. Great. So let's go ahead and clear the screen again with the clear command. And let's talk about deleting files. So you can use rm to delete a file. It's basically like remove a file, and this is something you want to be careful with because in the terminal or the shell, if you rm a file, you can't recover it. So definitely want to be very careful with that. So let's rm test1. And as you see, the test1 file has disappeared. Now let's try to rm test directory 1. And you see rm, it complained, rm cannot remove test directory 1 because it is a directory. And so if you recall from the last lesson, we used the command man to view a manual. So if we look at the manual for rm, remove files and directories is what it does. If we scroll down to the options here, we'll see this option for R, recursive, remove directories and their contents recursively. So in order to remove a directory with rm, you have to pass this R argument to it. So we'll do that, rm, R test directory. And bam, our directory has been removed. Okay, so let's go ahead and create another directory. Let's do mkdir. This is a new directory. And let's do mkdir. This is a new directory 2. And so let's go back to using the move command. And let's see how we can move a directory into another directory. So let's mv, this is a new directory, and we'll move this into, this is a new directory 2. So add the 2, put the slash, and bam. If we are to browse, this is a new directory 2, you'll see there's our old directory, or our directory that we moved at least. And we'll go back up. And let's see what else we can do here. Let's maybe try to, another recursive example is, say if we want to cp a directory or copy a directory, say we want to copy, this is a new directory into, this is a copied directory, excuse my naming here, you'll see it complains and it's omitting the directory because the copy command also needs a recursive flag, which is the -r when handling directories. So rm and cp need, you need to tell the commands that it's a recursive action if you're dealing with directories. So let's go ahead and copy this directory. Bam. So now we have a copy directory, and let's see what else we can do here. Obviously, we've been over ls. We can list the files inside of a directory. This is a new directory. We have our directory inside of there. How about this? Let's play with ln. We talked about ln a little bit in the last video. ln is for creating links, and a link is like a shortcut in Windows to a different file. So for example, say if we want to create, hang on, let's look at this directory. Let's create a new file in a nested file, actually. Let's do a touch. This is a new directory. This is a new directory. Test file 1. So there, if we look inside this directory and then inside this directory, we just created this test file. Say if we wanted to create a shortcut to this file that's nested in these two directories to our example directory, we could do an ln. This is a new directory 2. This is a new directory, test file 1. And we'll call it this. We'll call it our link 1. Bam, and you see our link 1. It shows us 0 bytes in the file system because it's simply a pointer to another file. And let's see if we were to cat. I'm not sure if we actually wrote anything in our test file there. Let's go ahead and add some data to that file now. We'll use Vim again and make sure it has some content in it. Let's save it. Now, if we are to look at our link that we created here, our link 1, this is our data. And so it's literally just a pointer or a shortcut or link, if you will, to our file here, right here. So this is a little bit of how you can manipulate files in the shell. I know this was probably a lot to digest, but it was kind of meant to just build on what we went over in our previous video. I think we'll get a chance to play with some more things in the shell in the next video. So let's go ahead and wrap it up here, and thank you very much, and I'm looking for you tuning into our next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.